Equating Karl Marx to Sam Altman because they are both Jewish is not only anti-Semitic, but it is one of the most intellectually lazy things I have seen on the internet in a while, and I post on here quite a bit. So I made this video that I posted on YouTube about Sam Altman's Molotov cocktail and what this means at the stage of the class war that we are in, and how we can honestly expect more of this because this happens over and over and over in history, no matter where you are in the world, when economic inequality gets to the point where we are at. It usually actually happens earlier because we are at such extreme levels right now. And Brendan the B-Dog thinks it's important to point out that Altman is one of many people in the tech world who are Jewish. I said it's interesting how willing people are to notice the Jewish connection and not the white connection. Notice I didn't even bring up man, because look at all the people he named. My green screen is acting stupid, so I'll just put up the photo here of his response being having the cockiness and audacity that only white man internet brain rot can bring you. That if I don't see the connection between Marx and Altman, then what hidden white thing do I want to see while he's saving my feelings? Baby, that you don't know that Marx warned us about Altman is at the heart of the incompetence of your theory. Karl Marx dedicated his intellectual life to arguing that people like Sam Altman are the villain in the story. Ones who hoard and concentrate capital at the expense of the workers who generate what is then sold for the capital. The displacement of workers was an evil to him. That there is an ownership of the means of production by a tiny elite. To compare that man to someone who is actively speaking about how humans are a waste of resources and wants to build a machine that requires our intelligence to then sell back to us to make him and a handful of his buddies wealthy is not just incorrect, it's ludicrous. And again, the nicest thing I can say is intellectually lazy. But y'all are probably reading in between the lines of what I actually think about this. Marx didn't just critique this system, he considered it a form of violence. And as I've already pointed out at the beginning of this video, he pointed out this leads to a point where people start a revolution, a class war. And when we see people throwing Molotov cocktails, the elite then start to see workers are being violent. But the working class have seen, you have been stealing from us and being violent towards us for a long time. The thing these two men share is an ethnic background. Now, Karl Marx did not practice Jewish faith. I doubt that Altman does, though I cannot confirm. But I doubt, just on the high-level understanding I have of Judaism, that he does. That's it. That's your entire analysis. Not capitalism, not what actually either of them preached or the ideologies, but the villain and who someone else theorized as the villain 200 years ago is your connection. And then you're going to ask if there's a hidden white connection I prefer. Race is a visible, usually, identity. It's why it is one of the first two things we notice about people, especially in the States: gender identity and racial identity. Now, you can be mistaken, especially when people are biracial, but white versus black is pretty clear usually. And this is where I've been talking about my page where the context is important. I've given an example of Asian American versus when you're talking about the Chinese government. I've given the example of being Catholic in Ireland during English occupation versus Catholic in Spain during the Inquisition. Different identities, different contexts. You're talking about Jewish people taking over in America when the only people who have colonized the United States are European white folks. During World War II, the U.S. actually sent back boats of Jewish refugees fleeing from Nazi Germany. Jewish people going back to medieval Christian laws were not allowed to work in certain occupations, so they took up fields that a lot of Christians weren't allowed to work in because of the church, such as finance. And when you exclude certain people from occupations, they do build their own means where they are allowed to work and get really good at it. And then when they get good at it, they get blamed for it. That's called a Darvo situation. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, offender. Now, we are living in a time where there is quite the hell going on in Israel and Palestine right now. And again, this is where context matters. You can think, and I do too, that Netanyahu is a fucking psycho, murderous, committing a genocide, and holding the Israeli government accountable for what they're doing. can still be done without being anti-Semitic to Jewish people all around the world. And a lot of y'all don't get that. Similar to how y'all didn't get that blaming Asian people all over the world for the government of China keeping COVID, not disclosing it earlier, is not the same thing and just makes you racist. It's also anti-Semitic to blame Jewish people all over the world for the Israeli government. And it also doesn't, why it is a complicated conflict is because they were dumped there after World War II because US and UK and other allies weren't pro-Semitic enough to take those refugees themselves either. And they probably sure as fuck didn't want to stay in Germany. So it is complicated. And you're trying to simplify it too, like that there's a point where Jewish people came to Silicon Valley and violently took it over. When like, babe, that was actually like Spain. Collapsing these distinctions is not activism. It's anti-Semitism. And it's lazy, and it's not an analysis. No amount of how condescending you are in your comments, and I hate to tell you this, is going to get to me. A beautiful thing about education is you can be wrong, but someone can't take it away from you. And it certainly isn't going to be taken away from me by somebody on YouTube who doesn't know the difference between Karl Marx and Sam Altman. As I've said before, I have no hope for people who leave comments because responding to them doesn't help that person. It just gets them defensive. Though when I see stuff that's this stupid, I don't really have hope for them. I'll be honest. I want to have hope for them. I don't. So for anybody else who has been struggling with being anti this genocide in Palestine, but also uncomfortable with all the anti-Semitism in the US, of wondering why people keep bringing up Jews in power, or just if you aren't aware that this is a major talking point being feted out by someone who is more right-wing than Trump and gaining power, or at least attention, which can be converted into power, as we saw with Trump. Nick Fuentes is peddling anti-Holocaust narratives, anti-Semitism, telling young, especially white boys, that he's red-pilled to fuel their anti-Semitism, and that's who they really should be angry at. So at the very least, anybody watching this, that's part of why I made this video, is we need to be aware that these dialogues are getting worse. And it's even little things that I don't take this personally, and I'm not trying to center myself here as much as I'm trying to show you an example of how ridiculous the anti-Semitism has gotten, is that I have a pretty small nose. Like, I'm actually used to be self-conscious about how flat my profile is. I have learned to embrace it, but like my glasses fall down my nose all the time. I have to have them very specifically made to stay because it's so shallow. I don't think I have a cute profile. I love like a majestic nose, okay? People used to ask me if I had a nose job because my nose is so small. Granted, it's not a nose job nose. It's pretty wide, but it's flat. People used to ask me that as late as 2019. And now, post Netanyahu's bullshit and post Nick Fuentes getting control, I get comments online, people saying that I must be Jewish because my nose is so big. Now, I don't have like Instagram brain rot. I don't even have Instagram anymore. So I'm fine with that. But that just shows, like, as soon as you say something people don't agree with, and they clearly can't accuse me of being a person of color, that's the first thing that, oh, she's not white, she's Jewish. Like, somebody went through all the comments on my video where I went on how reverse racism isn't real and tried to put that over and over again. Like, they're that obsessed with that I can't be white and know these things. It's a very strange obsession, but I'm worried about it getting worse and worse. We do not need another Holocaust. There are many genocides happening in the world right now. We don't need to contribute to this, which is why I don't support Netanyahu. Inability to hold nuance is what perpetuates a lot of this, and to know history and context. And that's why they're trying to burn books, people. That's why we're not taught about these things in school. I'm from a very Catholic family of Germans, and I know in my family history. I know about my family history, which is nothing on my mom's side because there were adoptions. But on my dad's side, I know that I'm from a long line of German Catholics. My brother is named after a German priest who was killed in concentration camps who took the place of a Jewish man. And I also know that I have at least 2 family members who died in Italy in the Nazi army. I don't know much about them because it's not talked a lot about in our family because it's so shameful. But that's what I have always been told. And so when people hear me talk about anti-racism, and instead of seeing this as, oh, look, you can unpack this stuff and not light on fire and hate yourself, or, oh, this is how we undo perpetrating continued harm because these things were so terrible we should never do them again, and instead try to say, well, she must not be one of us, is again that tribal, idiotic power play that authoritarian leaders thrive off of. And there are so many authoritarian leaders around the world right now, but the one that I have the most role in not supporting is obviously our president in the United States, because that's where I am a citizen and I vote. So please be aware of these things, because I am not in the camp of when it happens, aka Trump, that it's over. If we do not address these things, and this is why I talk about culture, narratives, ideologies, and not just capitalism versus communism. That's where I don't identify as a Marxist. Things are going to get worse if we're just like, oh, as soon as Trump is dead, it's over. No, I don't want Nick Fuentes 2032 people. Because these idiots coming online, using this genocide in the Middle East, in Palestine, to try to start another one, neither of those are okay.